next on One on One.
In the many struggles of my life, I didn't have that love and concern that I was searching and wanting. And when I went into the worship service, I felt home. I felt I belonged there, that really it was the truth. It was the spirit that I had not felt before. And even though I said to the minister, I don't think I'll be back, it was that, the pride, that I had found something that was priceless, that money could not buy.
Welcome to One on One. I am Brother Barry Thompson. This is a show where you meet everyday people from all over the world who have spent their lives walking in one or many directions only to discover that they needed to find the right path to God. See what these people found in the Church of Christ or Iglesia Ni Cristo that they couldn't find anywhere else. Today we're going one-on-one with Brother Eric Waterman, a minister inside the Iglesia Ni Cristo, who at one point thought that he achieved happiness in life, but see how he found true happiness inside the Iglesia Ni Cristo. Let's take a look at his story.
It was 1988, and Eric Waterman was 32 years old. He lived by the ocean in Southern California and woke up to the sound of waves every morning. He enjoyed a successful career and more friends than a man could ever need. And by today's standards, he seemed to have the perfect life, or so he thought.
It's kind of funny how some people don't realize where their life will lead. They chase after their dreams, and I was chasing after many dreams in Southern California, and I think the rest of the world. They think that money and things equate happiness. On the contrary, many times I was quite unhappy and not very satisfied with my life.
He was traveling through East LA traffic one afternoon with a coworker who was running late for a very important appointment in the San Gabriel Valley area. He asked Eric if he didn't mind stopping for an hour off course so he could make that appointment, and he asked Eric to join him.
So he went inside, and I sat in the car for a few minutes, and I went in. I noticed that indeed everyone was quite solemn and orderly, and in Southern California, everyone is in a fast pace, but at that moment, of course, it was before worship service. Everyone was meditating, and the hymn singing was quite spiritual and quite touching.
Needless to say, his colleague's appointment was actually a worship service in the Church of Christ. And for Eric, attending the service was a shock to his system.
I did not go to church. I was more of a money maker or a businessman. I did not have time for church. So when I went into that congregation for the first time, it was quite different than my normal activities.
In the studio today, we have Brother Eric Waterman. Brother Eric, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brother Barry, for letting me be on the program.
Great. Now, I understand you were actually born in New York.
That's correct.
When did you decide to go to California, and why?
Well, my life was always in pursuit of greater and bigger things. As a rolling stone gathers no moss, I was always on the go. Being from New York, we were always in the fast lane, always pursuing a bigger and brighter future. So I was always, from a young boy, wanting and yearning for something that I didn't have. The calling of the West Coast came, and I went to California in the late 70s and early 80s to pursue my greener pastures. So I was always looking to be able to live my dream, to live on the beach and have a happy life and, so to speak, fulfill the Hollywood dream of what life is supposed to be like. And while I was there working hard and also enjoying my life, I was able to be privileged to have met many people, and especially those that were at the time titans of business. Many of my acquaintances were at the time very, very wealthy, that indeed I was privileged to be with them and to be able to befriend them, so to speak. And I was always seeking out that there must be something more to the meaning of my life than just seeking out my own pleasure or my own desire. I used to try to ask for meaning in life. I had never gone to church in my whole life, and I didn't really like religion per se because of the televangelists that were always taking advantage of other people. And I felt that they were just making religion as a business, and I was not pursuing a religious way of life. I just wanted to do what was in my heart. And what was in my heart at the time was to pursue my own desire and try to enjoy the comforts of life. I did not deny myself anything, and there were many privileges. Of course, now I look back, life of the flesh, so to speak. But at the time, I had no idea that it was against the teachings of God or the righteous way. I was just following my own heart and my own desire, till I was called into the church on that moment that I went into the worship service. I was not really looking. I was just somewhat empty in many of my relationships, left a lot to be desired. Many times my dreams were shattered. Many times my life, according to what I thought, was a failure. But as I look back, it was not a failure. I had a very blessed life, and God had another plan for me. I believe that those early years I had seen what life could be.
Were you actually searching for something more than what you had at the time when you stumbled upon the church?
Well,
Were you searching for meaning in life?
I really did not think that religion would be for me. I listened to the preaching, even though it touched my heart. The minister was preaching, and I remember teaching about renewing your life, that you should not be in this regard or that regard. And I thought the minister was talking about me, and I would hide behind the person in front of me, and I didn't really want to hear it. But funny thing about the truth, that even though the truth hurts, it still is the truth. And that was the awakening of my life, that I was called by God at that moment.
Did you believe in God at this point in your life before you stumbled upon the church?
No.
Did you believe in God? Would you call yourself back then agnostic, where you were on the fence, you didn't know, which direction to believe or not to believe? How would you describe faith at the time for you, or God?
I think the only thing that I believed in was the work ethic, to work hard and to grab the most you can from life and march to your own drummer, so to speak. I didn't really think about God and that all things came from God, or that God was the one that made your life and your heart beat and gave you the talents to be able to earn or have the luxuries and life that you are leading. So I guess you would say that I was maybe agnostic in doubting whether God really was the ruler of my life, because I really didn't give any honor to God or to religion.
So how do you go from having that type of mentality and thinking, where you don't really think about God at all, you stumble upon the church? Well, we say stumble back then, but now it's something that had to happen in your life. God kind of led you in that direction. But how do you go from not knowing anything about God, not having any desire to serve Him, to all of a sudden having that desire? What is it? What was a turning point? It's not, because anybody can stumble upon, just by turning on your television, you can stumble upon religious organizations and people preaching and teaching about God. So going from where you were before, then all of a sudden being grabbed, what was it that hooked you, that caught your attention? Was it something that you felt after your first attendance in the worship service?
Well, I think comparing and contrasting to those that I was associated with, you know, I had been privileged with being with so many people that had it all. I mean, in the late 80s, some of my friends were billionaires that had so much money that their children and grandchildren never had to work a day in their life, but they were still working. And they were still doing what they felt in their heart was their life's mission. But I saw the victims of that hard work being their family, their harmony, their happiness, their contentment. I used to always put job, money first. Family was a distant second, and God was not existent, to the point that I didn't realize that it was important to put God first in my life. So when I went to the worship service and heard that, I remember the verses that it would be difficult in the last days because people would be lovers of themselves.
So that was it. There was a void in your life, in
Yes.
a sense that you had things that most people wanted. You know, you were making good money, right? You were mixing with the rich and the famous. You've seen their lives. You've seen the money and the lifestyle that they had that so many people today want to have. And even though you had all those things and you were surrounded by those things, you weren't happy.
No. In the many struggles of my life, I didn't have that love and concern that I was searching and wanting. And when I went into the worship service, I felt home. I felt I belonged there, that really it was the truth. It was the spirit that I had not felt before. And even though I said to the minister, I don't think I'll be back, it was that, the pride, that I had found something that was priceless, that money could not buy.
Were you touched in that first worship service that you attended in a way that you probably could not express? But were you touched? Do you feel something touched?
Well, I remember the hymn singing, and until now, it's a little bit hard.
That's all right.
The hymn singing was, in many of the lyrics, it was the silent prayer that was only in your heart. And to be able to vocalize or to hear your lips uttering things that you've always wanted to say. Yes, you could say that. It was in that moment. And then when the lesson came and it was just straight from the Bible, and as the shoe fits, you have to wear it. And even though I wanted to ignore it and didn't want to really follow someone else all my life, God has another plan. And the plan, I had to leave my life. And many of my friends at the time thought I had lost my mind, that I was crazy for abandoning this lifestyle. That, here you're at the Academy Awards, you're at the Grammys, you're able to go backstage to things that are just entertainment, but life is not entertainment. Life, it has a higher purpose. And at that moment, I found a calling, and I answered that call.
When we come back, we'll see how he eventually finds the missing pieces of his life. Stay with us. Welcome back to One on One. With us is Brother Eric Waterman. Before the break, we saw how he was first introduced to the Iglesia Ni Cristo. Now let's see why he kept coming back.
A few weeks later, the same co-workers showed up at Eric's door and invited him again back to San Gabriel Valley, this time for a Bible study. Though a bit reluctant, Eric went anyway.
Wow, many people are there wanting to know questions, and I had questions as well. It came straight from the Bible. It taught me something that I didn't know, something that I wasn't doing with my life, and I tried to correct it.
For Eric, living life by God's words was a change for the better. But not everyone around him believed that.
They liked the old Eric. They didn't like this new Eric. And the more I heard the Bible studies, the more I left my life behind, and I had to leave many of my friends, many of my life style, choices changed. I stopped working as much. You get to the top and you find that it's not the life that you thought or you dreamed. It's like buying a house. You look forward to that moment and then you move into the house, but it's just a house. It's not a home. It's not really anything that really gives you meaning and definition. And that's what I found out in my life was missing connection.
But Eric had finally found the connection he was missing. It was a connection to God. And after discovering it in the Church of Christ, he never looked back.
You eventually went back to the chapel
For the Bible study.
for the Bible studies.
Yeah.
What got you to go back? What was it that said, you know what, all right, let me give in to my friend's invitation?
When I went to the first Bible study, I just enjoyed the fellowship of the brethren there. They made me feel like a family. And not that I was searching for questions, but the Bible study was quite clear as to what should be the basis of my way and road in life. Mm-hmm. At the moment that I was in the Bible study, I felt that I was being placed on the right path. Then after I started to go, some of my good friends, they tried to intervene and make an intervention in my life, and they sat me down, and I remember being in Palm Desert at one of my friends' house, and I was invited out, and they had a psychiatrist that was there that was trying to tell me how I was being brainwashed, and that I had joined a cult, and that it was all the signs of the wrong way of doing something, that I shouldn't be so devoted, I shouldn't be so dedicated, I shouldn't be following just one way. Mm-hmm. But instead of thinking that my brain was washed in a negative way, I thought it was a positive. I had washed my way of life, and my friends wanted the old Eric, you know, the one that was the life of the party, the one that was a joy to be around, the one that inspired and wanted people to be around them. I didn't have a problem making friends, but all of a sudden these friends were making a big deal about me going to church. And then that's how I knew, well, why is it that they're giving me such a hard time just to go to something that's free, something that is right, something that's good, something that's benefiting me? And that was when I realized that it must be the right thing.
Any particular question that was plaguing your mind, something that you wanted an answer to, that you found it?
Well, that was an interesting question, because I wasn't verbalizing my questions, just that inside my heart I had a question, and then the next Bible study, it answered that very question. Or the next worship service I would go to, it would answer the question that I had silently in my heart. So the more I went, it was like building a foundation.
What did you think when those you were going through those experiences where you're thinking something and then it's being answered the next moment? I mean, that's not something that happens every day. So what did you think about that? Did you think that God was
an all-powerful, all-knowing, and ever-present? So I knew that there was no coincidence.
Right. When we come back, we'll see how Brother Eric finds true happiness in his life. Don't go away. Welcome back to One on One. With us is Brother Eric Waterman. Let's take a look at what path he took to bring him closer to God.
It's been about 20 years since Brother Eric joined the Church of Christ, and today he's a minister of the gospel and lives a life with more blessings and more purpose than he'd ever dreamed possible.
I am en route from Hamburg to the Danish border to visit one of our groups. The group worship service is Bremen, but some of the brethren travel 200, 300 kilometers just to gather in
As a minister in the church, he has been assigned to different congregations all over the world and continues to see the magnificence of God's guidance in the church. Brother Eric continues to propagate and share the power of God's love and God's word.
Always be reminded to be patient.
And to see the church grow and to be on the forefront, it's a really blessed and holy experience. You have to put on the helmet and the breastplate of faith, and you're really doing battle against the enemy of our faith. And you really feel that you're sometimes a soldier, and literally you are. You're helping to do battle so that the brethren that are there could remain strong and edify their faith. I remember the first time I had a devotional prayer in Central Temple. Those are the moments when you really value the power of prayer and the wealth of your membership, that these things are priceless. You experience them and you live by them and you share them. And in the experiences of your life, you start to find out that life is short. In that quick passage of time, there's so many days that are left in your life. And as I told the executive minister, I just want to serve. And I thank God that I was able until this moment.
Well, Brother Eric, I know that hearing those words that you spoke and your experiences has been something extremely special that's probably hard to describe. How do you go from being a businessman in which money is your ultimate goal to joining the Iglesia Ni Cristo and then entering the ministry?
Praise be to God that He sent instruments into my life. Brother Bob Pilien, the first minister that taught me, and other officers of the church, they embraced me. They built up my faith. And you know, when there were moments that I was battle scarred from the world or the tribulation, when I fell in my battle, they were God's instrument to pick me up. You know, Brother Bob is, to many people's lives, a special, special minister. That so many times the voice of reason comes from those that maybe you don't understand. How did God put them in your path, in your life? God had a calling, and eventually I was able to hear that calling loud and clear and do something about it.
And you thought the best way was the ministry?
Well, I remember hearing the lesson that the work is great and the workers are few. So I decided that if I could be of service, if I could be of help, and I wrote to the administration, but I was too old. I was already 33 years old, and they said, no, Ka Eric, you're already old. Maybe just be an officer, just be an LOS officer in the light of salvation. But still there was that yearning, so I kept writing and kept getting denied, and eventually I just got on a plane and went to the Philippines, and I met with the executive minister, Brother Iranyo Gimanalo, and my life changed at that moment. And he asked me the one question of why you're here. And I told him that it was because I wanted to serve God. And at that moment, he opened up my life. And my life has never been the same from that moment.
You've been all over the world, literally. This is in the ministry, right? You were assigned in different congregations in Europe.
Yes.
Where else were you assigned?
We were in South Africa for 3.5 years. We were all over England, the United Kingdom, and Ireland, and Scotland, and Wales. We were also assigned in Sweden and Denmark. We were able to purchase a chapel in Copenhagen, Denmark, which was a beautiful occasion and chapter in our life and ministry. In Hamburg also we were there. We were there in Bonn for a few years. We were in a little island of Mauritius. Many precious experiences. And now we're assigned in Lamont in the Midwest, the district overseen by Brother Joel Narciso, our district minister, that has helped us so much in our adjustment. And just a beautiful chapel. And it's a small town, and it's just a blessing to be in a most beautiful chapel that was bringing life to a town that their church had abandoned them or had closed, and now we brought the life and the spirit. And
you as a minister, Brother Eric, you speak to a lot of people. Let's say that you had one last chance before Judgment Day, and your family members, all of your relatives were right before you. It's your last speech to them. What would you tell them concerning this church, your experiences? What would you tell them that they should do, and why?
you know, that's funny because I remember my sister and brother coming to the first assignment in Philadelphia, and they wanted to check it out, see what kind of church this was. And my whole family was never religious, and they were listening to the lesson. It was about the false prophets and those that were leading people astray in the Catholic Church. And my brother first called me about a month later after visiting and said, "I'm joining the church." And I said, "Oh, great." And he said, "But not your church." I said, "What church?" "The Catholic Church." I said, "How could you be? You heard the lesson. It was clear. You're educated. You know." And he said, "Well, my wife is Catholic, and, you know, we want to keep our family not confused in their religious preferences. And the Catholics let you come as you are, do as you want, and live your life the way that you want." And a few weeks later, my sister, who heard the same lesson, also said the same thing. Sometimes we just don't want to see the truth until it's too late. But at the end of the day, before my life, it's my prayer that my father, and my dear mother, and my family could be inside and to know what I know. But that's God's calling. You can't go for someone else. You have to go because you heed the calling and you're following that course. I invite not only my family, but every family, not only just to think, but to seek out and to listen with open ears and an open mind. I just hope that people could understand what faith, hope, and love is. And the greatest is love. And I learned what love is to God. It's to obey and never be burdened by those commandments. Sometimes it's hard, but nothing's impossible. And I've seen, if I look back, you know, if I slow down just a little bit and look back and count those blessings, it's a blessed life, and it's an honor to be in the Church of Christ. Of my heart, I cannot replace those moments when in the hymn singing or in the preaching, it just, you feel God. I remember being in the Philippines, and I didn't understand Tagalog so well, but you felt the power of the Holy Spirit, and you felt the comfort and warmth of God's presence in your life. And never will I exchange that privilege for anything or anyone. I thank God for allowing me to have a part in His plan.
Thank you so much, Brother Eric, for joining us and
Thank you,
telling
Brother
us your life story. It's
Thank
been a
you.
blessing. God bless you.
Thank you.
As you listen to Brother Eric's story, perhaps it reminded you of someone you know, or maybe even your own story. Now, with so many choices of churches out there, it's easy to get confused. But keep in mind that there are tons of religions and churches out there in the world. But if you want the truth, there is only one. The only church built by our Lord Jesus Christ, the Church of Christ, or Iglesia Ni Cristo. For more information about the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ nearest you, write us at 111 1655 Southgate Avenue, Daly City, California, 94015. Or email us at oneonone@inctvprod.net. Thanks for joining us. I am Brother Barry Thompson. See you next time. God bless.